Ladies and gentlemen, we got noob merch. So a lot has changed since my last weapons tier list. For starters, we have a bunch of new weapons like the Rampage, the Bow Check, and the new c.a.r SMG. And on top of that, we've seen guns that were once previously bad like the c.a.r completely take over the world and become the most annoying gun in the game. So I thought it'd be a good time for me to do another Apex Legends weapons tier list. And like my previous tier list, I'm going to explain what I think they should do to buff certain weapons and also how they should nerf the overpowered ones. Also, I will not be including care package weapons in this tier list, but in general, those weapons are just worth picking up, so don't worry about those weapons. And as usual, these are my opinions, so please, if you disagree, just let me know in the comments down below, because you can dislike this video, ain't nobody gonna see those dislikes. So anyway, let's start the show. F tier. There is only one gun that I think easily belongs in F tier, and that gun is the P2020. The P2020 is just your basic pistol. It doesn't do that much damage, and ever since they removed hammer points, it just makes you wonder why you would ever use this weapon in the first place. Until they either increase its damage or give it back hammer points, or even just create a new hop up for it, I don't see any reason to ever run this weapon, and that's why it stays firmly in F tier. Next up, we have D tier. D tier are weapons that are bad, but they're not as bad as the P2020. And the only weapon in D tier is, I'm sorry everybody, the Mozambique. Look, I know the Mozambique has received a ton of buffs recently, but once they removed hammer points from this weapon, it's just an inferior shotgun overall. I'm glad it has 6 shots now, but in general, you'll find that the Mozambique is just outclassed heavily by the other shotguns. However, if they brought back hammer points, this shotgun could easily be S tier. It's that big of a difference. And now on to C tier. A lot of these weapons are okay and could use a little bit of a buff here and there. At the bottom of C tier, we have the RE45. The RE45 does a lot of damage. It always feels like a little R9, but the biggest downside with the RE45 is that it lacks a stock attachment, making it less accurate. It has less ammo than the R99 and the c.a.r, so it's heavily outclassed by 2 different SMGs now. Don't get me wrong, I think the weapon is pretty strong, but in order for me to keep it over an R99 or a c.a.r, it's going to need some type of buff. If they brought back disruptor ammo, it might be a little too overpowered, so I don't think that's the play, but maybe increasing its clip size or giving it some type of hop up so that it can do more would be pretty great. Next, we have the Bow Check. When the Bow Check was first released, it was overpowered. They nerfed it to where it's at right now, and it's okay. One of the biggest problems the Bow Check has is that it's its own ammo type, and since not many people run the Bow Check, you're not going to find arrows anywhere, unless of course you're running Loba. Not to mention, it's not that great in close range, even with its shotgun ability. I think a simple way to buff the Bow Check would be to either increase the amount of arrows you can carry with it, or increase its damage slightly, because right now, there's no reason to use it over any other sniper. And that's why the Bow Check is going to be solidly in C tier. The next weapon in C tier is the Prowler. The Prowler was in the care package for such a long time, but now it's on the floor, and initially, it was very, very strong. After a few nerfs, it's here in C tier. Don't get me wrong, it's incredible in close range, and its hipfire is insane, but from mid to long range, you're not going to want to use it. And you'll notice that a lot of weapons that are only good in close range are going to be outclassed now because the 2 main maps that you can play this season, World's Edge and Stormpoint, just require a lot more ranged encounters. And when it comes to close range weapons, the Prowler is outclassed by other weapons as well. I think a simple fix to the Prowler would be to add the ability to turn on select fire. Maybe make it so its burst mode is slightly stronger but less accurate, or vice versa. Just something to give you options with the Prowler, because right now its burst mode is quite limiting for making it accurate from mid to long range. Next up, we have the charge rifle. The charge rifle is a great sniper, and like I said earlier, having range is important in this map. However, the charge rifle, while really good at poking from a distance, isn't really the greatest for securing kills. It has an insanely long reload time. It can only carry 1 attachment to upgrade it. It's not bad necessarily, but it definitely just feels really outclassed by the other snipers in this game and the other marksman weapons. A part of me wishes that they put the charge rifle in the care package and buff it so it's back to its original form when it was first released. Because if you buff it any other way, it will feel even more annoying than it already is. The next weapon in C tier is the Hemlock. The Hemlock got a slight buff where its hipfire is a little bit more accurate, and it got a new hop up, even though it's not as good on this gun as it is on the Wingman, and it is pretty decent at medium range, and if you use single fire, I think it's pretty decent at long range, but it is easily outclassed by every other assault rifle on this list. Other weapons do what it does better and faster. A part of me wishes that they just reduce reduce its hipfire again to be back to its previous form. I know a lot of people may not like that. The Hemlock meta was a thing for a little bit, but I just love the Hemlock. I just want it to be good again, okay? Jeez. And at the top of C tier, we have the 3030 repeater. The 3030 repeater has gotten a lot better since its introduction. For starters, its hipfire is a lot better. Before, you could never land hipfire shots, and now it's decent. And it also has the ability to become a shotgun, which I think is criminally underrated. On top of that, it has another hop up to fast reload. The weapon in general is very versatile, so why is it at the top of C tier and not higher? Some weapons shoot slower but are way stronger, and some weapons shoot faster and are way stronger. So I just think the 3030 either needs a fire rate buff or a damage buff, a slight one. Trust me, you don't want the 3030 repeater to be the best weapon in the game. Okay, so that is all of C tier. Up next is B tier. B tier are full of weapons that are decent. They are either just slightly outclassed or could use a very slight buff to be a top tier weapon. Up first, we have the R99. The R99 hasn't really changed much. It's still a very solid weapon. And in most scenarios, I would put this weapon in A or even S tier. However, the meta has shifted towards more long range encounters, and using the R99 is just going to put you at a disadvantage. I don't think the R99 needs a buff necessarily. If the map designs shift away from being so open and more towards close encounters, the R99 will see a lot more play. So it's still a solid weapon. This is one that just got hurt the most by Stormpoint's existence. Next up, we have the longbow. The longbow at one point had a buff where it did 60 damage, and it was pretty overpowered, so they put it back down to 55, but I still think it's solid where it's at now. It's very accurate, has a decent fire rate, and does a good amount of damage. Since Skull Piercer was removed, I do wish that they increased the headshot multiplier, because landing headshots with the longbow, while still satisfying, could be even more satisfying if you get a pretty instant knock. But overall, I do think the longbow is in a good spot right now. Our next weapon is the newest weapon, the c.a.r SMG. The c.a.r SMG is very similar to the R99. It has a way higher rate of fire while being slightly less accurate, but what makes it better than the R99 is its versatility in the fact that you can swap ammo types. This is super important because at times, finding ammo can be very difficult, and being able to swap on the fly can make or break your game. It also makes looting super convenient since you can use both heavy and light mags. Not to mention, the c.a.r is just really strong. While being less accurate than the R99, it kills faster, and killing faster is more important because you can fix your aim. You can't fix the amount of damage you do. Up next is the Sentinel. The Sentinel is a really solid sniper, especially when you charge it with your shield cells. But even without charging it, or even without sights, this weapon is so strong. I do think it needs a slight buff, and the buff that I suggest is either make it so it only costs one cell to charge, or allow the charge to last a lot longer. Having disruptor rounds more often makes the gun feel a lot better. Next up, we have the L-Star. And oh my god, if I made this tier list last season, this would have been at the top of S tier. Thankfully, it got a couple nerfs that do balance it out a decent amount. Its damage is still insane. The fact that you can feather this gun so you'd never have to even reload is also insane. Seriously, I love that the L-Star is good, and I'm really glad they nerfed it a bit because it was really annoying before. But I still think it is a solid weapon, and that's why it sits close to the top of B tier. The next weapon we have is the Devotion. The Devotion is one of those guns that would normally be A or S tier, but the reality is if you don't got a turbocharger on it, it's not that great. With the turbocharger on it, it is nuts. The potential damage that you can do with this weapon is outrageous. And honestly, I would put this in A tier, but I do think it's outclassed by another weapon that uses the turbocharger. And at the top of B tier, we have the EVA shotgun. The EVA shotgun was once the most dominant shotgun, but after a couple nerfs, it's now in a solid spot. It's still pretty annoying to deal with, but it's also less of an overpowered beast. And the only reason it's not an A or S tier is because it's outclassed by the other shotguns. And now we're in A tier. These weapons are all great, and using any of these weapons is a good idea. Starting with the Havoc. The Havoc is still a beast. Without turbocharger, I would say it's a fair weapon. With the turbocharger, it's an S tier weapon. But I love that having to find a turbocharger is kind of what balances it. I think it would be a perfect weapon to be in the c.a.r packages. Seriously, I do think it would fit better than the G7 Scout. Come on. Why are you in there? Get out of there. The next weapon in A tier is the Mastiff. The Mastiff shotgun received an awesome new attachment that allows for it to reload a lot quicker. But even without that, the Mastiff is in a really good spot. It does great damage at a decent range and is just a very reliable, solid shotgun. Next up is the Rampage. The Rampage, I feel like people thought it was overpowered at first, and then they realized it wasn't that great. But now that we've got to play with it for a couple seasons, I think it's awesome. Even without being thermite boosted, it's very accurate, does a lot of damage, and has a lot of ammo. You should honestly use it like a marksman marksman weapon at mid to long range. And if you want to use it in close range, that's when you pop a thermite in it. Because when you do pop a thermite in it, it is insane. It is probably the best weapon in the game. Up next, we have the Volt SMG. The Volt is still the best SMG, and with more and more people using energy ammo, you're gonna find yourself having a decent amount of energy ammo even late game, which is one of the only problems I had with it before. It's accurate, it does a ton of damage, it has great hip fire, it's even really good at poking from mid to long range. It's no sniper, but it's just such a versatile weapon, so I still love the Volt. And next up in A tier, we have the Wingman. The Wingman is still the Wingman. It's amazing. If you can aim, it's busted. If you can't aim, well, you know. But on top of that, it has a new hop-up, Speed Loader. This allows for you to reload this weapon even faster if you reload it at a specific ammo amount. And it also increases the ammo capacity. You can have over 10 shots on your Wingman. It's insane. And our final weapon in A tier is the Peacekeeper. The Peacekeeper is finally good again. With a couple slight buffs, it feels like it used to on day one. Okay, it's not that good, but if you're the type of person that loves using shotguns and you love playing in close range, the Peacekeeper is the best close range weapon. It does insane amount of damage. The fact that it always has precision choke is amazing, and it's just awesome. It's the freaking Peacekeeper, guys. And now we're here at S tier. These weapons are the cream of the crop, and honestly might need a slight nerf in some capacity, but using any two of these weapons in every game will probably grant you a dub. At the bottom of S tier, we have the R301. The R301 is a perfect weapon. It's extremely accurate, it does great damage, it's good in close, mid, and long range, it's got good hip fire. It's honestly just a perfect weapon. I have nothing else to say about it. You should be using the R301 this season. It's awesome. The next weapon in S tier is the Flatline. The Flatline is the greatest weapon in mid to close range. Its hip fire is nuts. Its damage output is nuts. It's a heavy weapon, so you're always going to have ammo for it because everybody's using heavy weapons this season. It doesn't even require a barrel stabilizer, so it's easy to fully stock up. It's seriously become such a perfect weapon as well. However, there is one more weapon at the top of S tier, and that weapon is the Triple Take. The Triple Take is back on the ground after being in the care package for so long, and boy is it busted. It's not a sniper anymore. It uses energy ammo again. It has a precision choke attached to it, and it's extremely accurate from mid to long range, and you can even hip fire it like a shotgun. It's basically the Peacekeeper, but you can use it at long range. Think about that. With this season only being Storm Point and World's Edge, the Triple Take just becomes even better. Slap a 2 times or even a 3 times or a 2x4 on it, and you'll find yourself getting kill after kill with it. The Triple Take with the Flatline or the R301 is the perfect combination. It's the combination that I use in ranked. And in my opinion, I think the Triple Take will need a slight nerf. Probably the simplest nerf would be maybe to nerf how quickly the precision choke works, but even without it, it's just such a solid weapon. I'm glad it's back on the ground, and if you want to climb the ranks, you gotta use the Triple Take. Okay, that is my season 11 weapons tier list. And there are way too many weapons now, so I can only imagine that the next time I do this, it's gonna be even longer because there's gonna be so many weapons. But what do you guys think? What would you say is the best weapon in this game, and what would you say is the worst weapon in this game? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and if you somehow got this far, thank you. I really appreciate you watching, and if you haven't subscribed, you know, why not just do it? It's free. But anyways, I'll catch you later.